Hello everyone, Jimmy here, and welcome to episode 12 of Omnifactory. Last episode, if you remember, we set up automation to make lumium and signalum, and with that stuff I've been able to upgrade all of our energy conduits to signalum tier, which carries significantly more energy than the N steel we were using before. So if we take a look, signalum energy conduits carry a little over 500k RF a tick, whereas N steel ones are like 32k, so it's a 16 times increase. It also involved going over and right-clicking every single conduit, all 1,000 of them. So that was fun. But perhaps more fun was that we were able to upgrade all of our numismatic dynamos from from Electrum tier to Signalum tier. And now they each produce 12.5k RF a tick, and there's 16 of them. So if my math is right, which it's been wrong a lot this series, but I think that's 200k RF a tick just from these dynamos, and we get a little bit more from the rest of our power generation. So in total, I think we have a bit north of 250k RF a tick to use, and we're only using, maybe 150k of that. You see, these aren't even producing at max output yet. So I think it's time that we put the rest of that power to use for ore processing. That's right, we're finally doing it. So here in my inventory, I have all the components for our ore processing line. We have IV macerators, Blendomatic 9001s apparently, HV ore washing plants, and EV molecular separators, which are centrifuges. So let me go ahead and, I also cleared out a large basement, thanks to the help of our handy dandy destruction gadget. It's just like you walk up to a wall and delete, 1,000 blocks at a time. So yeah, I cleared out this basement, and I think we can put our ore processing back here. So let me get the machines placed down, and I'll show you how I like to hook them up. And here we have it. This is our ore processing line. It looks like a lot of machines. Well, it is a lot of machines, and it looks pretty complicated, but it's really quite simple. Let me explain it to you. So, perhaps to make it easier to understand, think of this as three separate processes. We have a macerating process, a ore washing process, and a centrifuging process. And they're not connected together via item conduits in any way. In fact, they're only connected together via our ME network. So think of it as three separate processing systems. First off, we have our macerating system. What we do is into these chests, we send items via export bus, and we'll put capacity cards in these export buses so that they can do up to 9 items each. And each crate has 4 export buses. So it's 9 by 8, 72 different ore types, and we can double that by using the other set of crates as well. So we can do up to, 144 ore types if we have to, and we just export them into these crates. Then, from these crates, we extract with item conduits in round robin mode, and put them into put them into our compressors. Our macerators. These macerators are all set to disable. Every machine here for now is set to disable overclocking. And what I'll do is once we have it started, I'll start turning on overclocking until our power use equals our power generation. So into each of these macerators, we insert on the brown channel, which comes from the crates, and we extract on the blue channel, which goes into an interface, which sucks it back into the ME network. So my plan is to export ores, such as iron ore. Let's just start the process. So let's make an ore we have slightly more of. We have tons of copper ore. We can do that. So we put the export bus to send copper ore in here, and you'll see copper ore starts filling this crate. And then the copper ore gets pulled into these macerators, which I'll turn overclocking on this one just so it's a little faster once it finishes this product. This first macerator will turn it into 2 pieces of copper dust and cobalt dust and stone dust. We don't really care about the stone dust. We care about these two, right? So you see it produces copper and cobalt. And what I'm going to do then is they all get sucked into this interface, which pulls them back into the ME system. And if you look here, we now have crushed copper ore. So we have to ask ourselves, in the case of copper, we can either pulverize it again, which will give us another cobalt, or we can wash it, which gives 3 tiny cobalts, but then when we pulverize it the second time, we get a different product. And in this case, it's gold. And I would rather have gold than cobalt. So what we want to do with our crushed copper ore then is come over here to our ore washing system. And it's set up basically the exact same as the pulverizers, except that well, for one, there's 64 of them because they're very slow. There's a couple large water banks feeding them water. And I guess those are the only differences. So we can come over here and into this export bus, we say, hey, put crushed copper ore into here, right? So the copper ore that we're making over there, or the crushed copper ore, will get sent into here, which gets fed the same way through round robin extract into our ore washers. And again, we have overclocking disabled. I'll enable one just so that we can run our first batch slightly faster. And when it washes, we should get purified copper ore. Where is it? Something not hooked up. Yeah, I forgot to hook I think they're not inserting. Right, yeah. Item conduit. It got a little cramped up in here, but that's fine. So we want to insert on blue. There we go. And now we should have purified copper ore. So the next step with purified copper ore is to pulverize. Well, we have the option to thermal centrifuge it, but if you look, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time compared to pulverizing it. So as far as I can tell, there's zero reason to use a thermal centrifuge. A couple products produce slightly different byproducts this way, but I don't think it's ever good enough to interest me in spending, 2,400 versus 76,000. That's what, like a factor of 30? No thanks. So with this purified copper ore, the next step is to pulverize it again. And that's what these sets of storage crates are for. So I'm planning on exporting ores into here and purified or crushed ores, either purified or crushed ores into here. So we put that here, and that'll fill this chest. Now I think these are all already filled with copper, so I'll manually switch one of them over. I'll switch our fast one over. And you'll see now this starts crushing this down into purified copper dust and gold dust. And if you see, remember, our byproduct is 100% because this is an IV tier machine. So I'll put this back here to queue up for processing. And now we have this purified pile of copper dust. Take that. And the last step, if you look here, this is again very similar to the same way we have set up our ore washers and our macerators, right? We have a bunch of input crates and machines that process them. So here, I will just tell it, hey, send purified copper dust here. And that will extract and send it to our molecular separators, which are centrifuges, which will process the purified copper into regular copper dust and 3 tiny piles of gold dust. And there we have it. That's with this, we have now our copper automation is fully set up. Now let me show you how we can do it with another metal. So I keep going back to iron just because I guess that's where, let's do galena. Actually, let me find an ore that I don't want to wash, and I'll show you what I'll do if we skip the washing step. Okay, so I found an ore that we don't want to wash. If you look at uraninite ore here, if we pulverize it, we get uranium-238 dust, and the second time around we still get uranium-238, whereas if we wash the crushed ore and then pulverize it, we get thorium dust. And we have easier ways of getting thorium, so I would rather have the uranium-238. In that case, the process starts off the same. Which one did I configure? We export uranite ore into this crate, which will slowly fill up. Let me Just put one here so that we can start the process. Right, it will crush down into crushed ore. But instead of sending the crushed ore to the washers like we were before, let's grab that crushed uranite ore and we'll send it to get pulverized again without being washed. That way, we skip the washing step. The crushed uranite ore or uraninite ore will show up in here. And once again, I will manually put it in here so that we can see what the next step is. This ore will now get crushed again into impure piles of uraninite dust, which likewise we go over to here and schedule to have them centrifuged. And now, simple as that, another ore is being processed. So I'm going to repeat this process for almost all of our ores that I want to process this way. There's some that are simply not worth the trouble, like I guess lapis stands out as one of them. Its byproducts are not very useful, and it takes a long time to process because the crushing step yields a lot of ores. Alright, so let me go ahead and add a bunch of other ores to this list. It'll basically be the same process I just shown, so I'm not going to make you sit through it. As I was setting up the ore processing, I remembered that we still have all these dense ores we have to process down. So I just want to show real quick how we do that. We have a ME interface configured to hold a stack of the dense iron ore, and as we get the other dense ores, I'll add them here. And all we do is transfer from there with an item conduit into a chemical reactor, which reacts it with nitric acid that comes from an export bus. And then we take the result and push it back into the interface. That way we can automatically process down our ores, our dense ores. I've gone ahead and scheduled all the ores that we have in any meaningful quantity to be processed. And you can see there are a lot of ores, and it'll take it a long time to process. But that's fine. It'll run in the background while we do other things. I think the next goal, though, would be to tackle these tiny piles that we're producing. And if you look, there are a lot of, tiny piles of various dusts. And if we just let them accumulate, they're just going to take up a lot of space on our AE drive and clog up the system. So how about I'll devise a way that we can transport these into packagers, if you look, or packers, sorry, which can very quickly turn them from tiny piles into, regular dusts. But you have to feed them 9 at a time to keep them from getting jammed. So let me build that system and I'll show you how it works. It should be pretty simple. To handle the item packing problem then, I have 2 packagers. They're being fed by the small storage crates, which are being fed by export buses. And in between there is a robotic arm on supply exact 63. This number can be any multiple of 9. Just if you choose 63, this has a higher uptime, right? Because it has items in it more often. The packager is very fast. It's just the item transport takes a second to realize, hey, I can move items. Anyways, so I think with that, our ore processing is totally complete. We now have a lot more raw resources to work with, and with those resources, I think it's time that we tackle the next couple tiers of microminers. So we've already made tiers 1 and 2, right? Let's look at tier 3 and 4. So tier 3, tungsten carbide plated, uses obviously tungsten carbide plating, but we're already making that. And what is this? Solidified argon, everything else here we can do. Tier 3 circuits. So it looks like tier 3 microminers are within reach. Let's see if tier 4 is also within reach. So that's the same mining laser, tungsten plating, signalum plating, that's fine. So it looks like we should be able to make both tier 3 and tier 4 microminers right now. They both are made in the 7x7 crafting table, but I think we're reaching the point where I no longer want to do this 5x5 or 7x7 crafting by hand. So first, let's look at see if we can automate the crafting on these extended crafting tables. To do so, we use something called an automation interface. automation interface by extended crafting, and the whole purpose of this block is to automate the extended crafting table. So we need osmiridium for that, right? That's why I hadn't started it yet. And unfortunately, the best source of osmiridium we will get is from tier 4 microminers for now, right? Which gives osmium and iridium. So I guess in light of that, we have to handcraft our microminers for a little bit longer. But with all the ores we have now, or all the dust we have from our ore processing, we should easily be able to craft a handful of tier 3 and 4 microminers. So let me go draft up the patterns for that and send them off to their little microverses. One of the components we needed for those mining lasers are these solidified argon balls, which I just want to show are pretty easy to make. You take the argon gas that comes out of our gas distilleries over there, stick it in a fluid distiller with a ball mold, and it makes solidified argon. I just want to also say we're going to set this space here aside because we're going to have to make solidified versions of all the other noble gases and various other liquids when we get into making omnium. So I just wanted to point out that, hey, we're getting ready for omnium. We're pretty close. Isn't that exciting? And here we are crafting the tier 3 extended crafting table. Remember, once you have one of these, you can duplicate them to have multiples. We'll need one for each automation process. So when I get my first one, I just like to make 2 stacks of it. And that way we should have enough to last the rest of the game. The signalum heavy plating for our microminer needs to be made in a a insane voltage compressor. So this looks like as good a time as any to upgrade our compressors from high voltage to insane voltage. Now we get to find out why incidentally left a 1 tile space here. If we get rid of that and get rid of these and get rid of these and those, thanks Vein Miner, we can replace that with a CEF of whatever voltage tier we like. Make sure you point it away from the high voltage cable or you'll burn the cable and be very sad. Grab our insane voltage cables, put those down. And then we can drop our compressors in place. And simple as that, we've upgraded from, or I guess we have to plug the thing in, the CEF. But basically with just that, we were able to upgrade our machines from one tier to the other. Of course, building the machines was the actual challenging part of the upgrade. Alright, and it seems our power is being a little stressed right now, so this isn't actually getting much power. I should figure out where our power is going. Let's see. So these are fully drained, and these are fully drained. So I guess our ore processing is probably using slightly more power than we're actually producing. With our conduit probe, if you put it in like probe mode and then right click one of these things, you can see your energy use. And yeah, it looks like we're consuming 400k RF a tick. But we don't produce 400k RF a tick, we're actually using it out of buffers. So we need to reduce our power consumption. Good news is that's not too difficult. We can just come down here and turn off some overclocks. Anyways, I'm going to go continue to set up our microminer auto crafting in the meantime. We're ready to auto craft tier 3 microminers now. Let me put all the components back in. But if once we make it, I'll show you that the tier 3 microminer isn't very useful. When the materials it gets are, I don't know, it's just you don't need a lot of them, I guess. So we'll probably only make the one for now, and then we'll move on to tier 4. So if we look at the tier 3 microminer, it can get us emeralds, diamonds, rubies, lapis, gold, silver, whatever, right? We have better ways of getting all of these. And then this one is just a bunch of basic ores as well. So, you know, scheelite and tungstate come from tier 2, rutile from tier 1. I guess the only unique thing here is Certus quartz, but we can just buy that with omnicoins, whatever. So yeah, we don't really need to make tier 3 microminers. And now, after much pattern encoding, I think we are ready to autocraft a tier 4 microminer. So when all the components are crafted, like before, they go in this chest. For now, we're still manually doing the last step, but we craft a tier 4 microminer. There was one component of this that required a little bit more work, and let me show you what I built for that. So if you look over here, we started getting this radium salt from our tier 2 microminers. So I added an electrolyzer that turns it into radium gas, and then a chemical reactor or a chemical bath that combines radium gas with eyes of ender to make improved ender eyes, which are a component in the tier 4 microminer. And we'll be using these all over the place going forward. They're in various circuits. They're for upgraded wafers so that we can do circuits easier and more circuit stuff. So yeah, we'll be seeing a lot of quantum eyes going forward, but here's our automation system for it. It's set to turn off once we reach 1,000 in the bank. So having made our tier 4 microminer, let's go launch it. Let's just do the one for now. Oh wait, the tier 4 microminer actually requires a medium microverse projector, so we actually can't launch it yet. Gotcha. Let me see. Nothing in here seems like particularly difficult, so let me go ahead and gather up these components, and then we'll launch our tier 4 microminer. Here are the supplies for the medium microverse projector, and time to build.
That sounds good. What am I missing? I guess I just don't make enough cases. Oops.
Would you look at that? Now, let's go grab our ships. I built a few more while I was crafting those components. And with these first 8, I think we want to get osmiridium with all of them. So it's petrothium and quantum flux. Alright, I'll be back when the petrothium's crafted. Alright, little Kerbals, off you go. Off you go. Off you go. We'll be back when they're done flying. Hopefully they come back alive. It is with a heavy heart that I inform you that Jebediah did not return. His microminer experienced rapid unplanned disassembly in orbit around Jupiter. But that's okay, we were able to recover the ores from it anyways. So, rest in pieces, Jebediah. Anyways, now that we have our osmium and iridium, we can take it and process it down. Interestingly, because we get 100% yield on side products, we get from osmium ore, we get 3 and change iridium. So we get more iridium from osmium ore than we get osmium, and likewise from iridium, we get more osmium from iridium than iridium. That's a tongue twister. Anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and add these to our ore processing and let them process down. With our osmium dust and iridium dust, we have to first process them into ingots. So they both cook in a blast furnace at pretty high temperature for quite a while. And they both cook into hot ingots. But after that, we can process them together again in another blast furnace with helium to make hot osmiridium, which becomes regular osmiridium. And remember, the reason we're making this is so that we can make an automation interface to automate those 5x5 and 7x7 crafting recipes. So to do so, we're going to need 3 more blast furnaces. And let's make them tungsten steel coils and IV tier power. So we'll set that up. While setting up our blast furnaces, I realized that our power is basically completely out. Our energy cell is drained, our CEUs are drained, our dynamos are drained. Every ounce of power we're producing is being used, and I've already turned off as much overclocking as I can. So I'm thinking, let's just use another 8 numismatic dynamos. That'll give us another 100k RF a tick-ish. I'm choosing to run the fuel efficiency augments in these just so that we can, right now we're bottlenecked by our diamond production, not our ability to burn diamonds. So by running fuel efficiencies, we can stretch our diamond production further. All right, and now we have a bit more power being generated. A quick look at the network should show somewhere around 350k. Yep, 359k. And hopefully that means our blast furnaces will start running again. Running perfectly and running perfectly. All right, so here we have it. 1 blast furnace cooking osmium, 1 doing iridium, and then we can put them together here in the form of osmiridium. So let's grab an ingot of each. You can see it's only been running for like a minute, so we don't have much, but that's all right. That's the beauty of automation. You might not have much now, but give it an hour or 2, and then you'll have tons. And much like, I forget what thing we were cooking here, the glowstone wafers. Osmiridium takes both ingots and a gas. So if you look down here, I'm piping in helium via a fluid export bus. So now that some of our osmiridium is done, we do our usual thing of burning our hands for a second while we set it up to freeze. Ow, 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 ow. Alright, and then now our osmiridium is freezing in the freezer. And with our first few ingots of osmiridium, I think we're ready to tackle the automation interface. Let me go build one. And it looks like our automation interfaces are done, and let's go set one of them up. So to automate these advanced crafting tables, to start you need the crafting table. On top of it, you put the interface, and then on top of the interface, the automation interface that is, you put a ME interface. The automation interface takes a little bit of power, so let's get it that. And then as usual, you put the pattern into the ME interface and you hook that up to your ME network. So now when you request, let's say, tier 2 microminers, let's just do one now. What'll happen is, as the request, well, for now, let's grab a crate. As the request has components available, it'll push them into the automation interface, or just this one time, it'll push it into the crate. So let's see how that request is doing. That shouldn't take too long. All right, so all the supplies are now in here and maybe in there. So let's grab these, and we go into the automation, or into the table, and we put the recipe in, but we don't take it out. Then we go into the automation interface, and we click the Save Recipe button, which saves the recipe onto the automation interface. Then all we have to do is configure it to say, I want you to auto eject, let's see, auto extract. The interface will automatically extract items. So I think it's, no. So we want this. There we go. You want auto extract towards the interface to send the item back into it. The rest don't really matter because the interface is pushing items into the ME interface is pushing items into the automation interface. So that time we still had to do some manual work, but let's order one more. And this should be the last time we have to manually do anything on these crafts. So let's watch. And these components should only take maybe 20-30 seconds to craft. So once we have the automation set up for all of these advanced crafting tasks, we'll be able to order microminers without doing anything. And if you saw there, we very briefly saw the completed product go through and the crafting task is done. We now have 2 of these. So I'll go and set up the rest of these, the rest of our automation interfaces. Each one can only handle a single recipe. So for each microminer, you need one. For say that the lasers, they need their own recipe. For basically anything that takes a advanced crafting like anything that has to be done in the advanced crafting tables needs its own automation interface, crafting table, and ME interface. So give me a second. All right, and now all of our extended crafting recipes that we've unlocked so far have been automated. So it's actually pretty cool to watch this run. Let me demonstrate. Let's order like 30 of these. We'll use them before we know it. So as soon as it's done with the macerating steps and it begins crafting, I'll show you what it looks like while it's auto crafting. So as the components get put into the automation interface, it automatically puts it into the right slot in the crafting table, and you can just watch it run. It's not the fastest thing in the world, especially when crafting these crystalline ingots, because you use a lot of crystalline ingots, but it sure beats doing it by hand. So anyways, I think we got a lot done this episode. We automated production of up to tier 4 microminers. We finally got our ore processing system online. So yeah, I hope you liked the episode, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.